And so, as a Prime Minister, the I think compelling point for me is that if we get to see the Bahamas and to know the Bahamas, that because we are an island nation, and a nation that has no model anywhere, even in this hemisphere, we're a chain of islands spread over 100,000 square miles. We have different sets of civilization, so to speak, in islands that are intended to be knit together as one country. The pride that is fostered in knowing your country, in being able to know and appreciate the flora, the fauna, the beauty of our waters, all that God has given this country is a unifying factor. It is the most compelling factor that would cause Bahamians to know they are connected one to the other. And that is why there is no ifs and no buts, and whether or not there should be a total commitment to the protection of the environment and with all the attendant challenges of development and the need to try to establish this balance, because you're looking at Bahamians who are also entitled to work, entitled to be able to live a life with dignity, and therefore the art of compromise and governance becomes an important function. Ken introduced me and said that I was a romantic. I am a romantic. And when I met with Brother McKinney and my Tampa Bay cousin here, Kerry, we spoke about land parks. And there was an urgency for me to ensure that all that we had done to protect the marine life through the marine parks, that on an island by island basis we move immediately now to define parks before ad hoc development in these communities throughout our islands just take the areas that we would now have access to away from us. So let us now go and prepare them. And I told them, you know, people in Marsh Harbor are waiting to do that now. And so you have interested groups in Eleuthera, and they're doing it in a private way. So I'm now told, when I came here, that they have 5 parks ready to go. And that's good news, Brother McKinney, that's good news. Because the government will dedicate whatever resources that are necessary to ensure that it takes place. Because listen, you know, there is only one Bahamas, and we have this one opportunity to go and create this land-based park system. And that will change from island to island. I think it was Brother McKinney who indicated that as we go south, we have different features to the islands, and therefore the parks will take on a different context. That's fine. I want to just simply be a part of making the political decision, of being able to say we're going to dedicate the resources as the Minister of Finance, and then I'm going to leave it to the technical people to go out there and make the right decisions with respect to placement and being able to protect the wildlife that will be on those parks. And so truly, in terms of our future, I think that will also, in tandem with the marine parks, mean a great step forward for our country. And so I want to be able to move to another point, and it's the, you know, I have the commitment to the environment, I have the commitment to conservation, I have that. I want to be able to speak briefly to this audience about the relationship with history. The great difficulty we've had in the Bahamas is that we have not really recorded our history in a way that we are able to allow the people of our country to come to appreciate that history. And just as we are now talking and focusing on those of you who are gathered together, the National Trust, for example, would be in possession. There's a story. Let me say, it's a story of a lady by the name of Kate. They call it Poor Black Kate, whose story was used in the fight for the abolition of slavery, and that it was the first case of people being prosecuted for cruelty to slavery when she died in the stockade. And Henry and Mary Morse were the owners of the plantation in Crooked Island. They were given 3 months in jail. It was the first time it happened. It became a celebrated case where they had a review of the case. The colony at the time was angry, and they had a review of the case, and so it's celebrated. But I'm told the National Trust had the land upon which that estate existed. And so what becomes important for me to history, to pride, is that we go and take that estate and find that, listen, history will forgive me in saying this, but do our best to find where the foundations were, if they're not in evidence now, and somehow mark the spot, because the story was a celebrated story used in England at a time when slavery was being abolished, and it is relevant to the history of our country because it is celebrated in the annals of the court records and everything else, and we ought to be able to do that. So the plantations that exist, or that existed, to be able to not just research them, that we have, and we have that research, but to be able to do something about lifting those up from the oblivion of history and placing them in such a position where they become historical artifacts. And so I want you to in terms of the College of the Bahamas, the University of the Bahamas, there's a lot of excitement, I think, ahead for us. Because in addition to being able to, and I'm going to conclude here, because the whole basis of governance is to be able to provide a way of life for people, and to do so in a very sustainable way. And we have to use the environment as a big asset to us. Because if we are seen by the world to have the right practices, best practices in the environment, then it is a country that people will not just be able to come to because the chaps up in the satellite orbiting the world said there were 2 spots that they can see from space that are extraordinary places in the world here in the Bahamas. But that people will come because once they arrive in the Bahamas, they would know they are in a place that God created. And that should be the vision for each of us. So I come here to say to the scientists, to those of you whose work, you do so much for mankind, you do so much for the Bahamas. It's unheralded, we don't know about it. I've come to thank you on behalf of the people of the Bahamas, to encourage you, to indicate to the establishment at the College of the Bahamas that this is a tremendously important historical event, that I don't know if it becomes annual. I see it is the first one, and therefore I would really think by way of this happening, it's a wonderful coming together. For a country like the Bahamas, we could afford for it to be an annual event where scientists come in and we focus by way of agenda on issues that are profoundly important to our country and other countries in the region. And let me just say this. When this McKinney of Brief, is it Brief? Brief. Met me outside Cabinet one day and said, listen, there's a concern about whether or not my government will agree to extending a moratorium. I said it's a no-brainer. You know, we have to be able to protect the future of our country. And I want to thank those of you who slavishly work hard at helping the country protect itself. The other commitment, and final commitment, I suppose, is that whatever the government can do in furtherance of your being able to get the children of our country to truly understand the significance of the environment and that they could grow up appreciating it, then we will be prepared to assist you in that regard. And I'm sure Ken Dorset, as Minister for the Environment, will do so. The idea is, when it comes to the governance of the country, there should be no difference between Earl DeVoe and Ken Dorset when it comes to your work. They're the political directorate responsible for it, and they should be at one with you, and that is what I've come here to say, that we have this wonderful opportunity to make this and continue to make this the finest little country in the entire world. But we cannot do it alone. We have to get as many Bahamians and other people who come into our country on the same page with us. So let's make this live, let's make this work, let's grow this into something powerful and big, where the region would come in here because we're doing something in the Bahamas of a special significance to them. So it is with great sense of pride, really, that I've come here this morning to welcome you and to wish you well in your work, with the hope that this continues into the years ahead. Thank you very much.